Hello, my dear students. Now we are in the second lecture of this chapter of innovation and new product strategy. In the last chapter, we have already completed the very first topic, that is innovation as a customer-driven process. The video of that lecture has already been uploaded on the YouTube and is already being shared with you in the ELMS. Hopefully, you have already gone through this first lecture. Now we have only one topic remaining in this very chapter, that is the new product planning, and that's the chapter we're going to start our discussion with. New product planning is mainly an 8 steps process. Number 1, customer needs analysis. Number 2, idea generation. Number 3, screening and evaluation. Number 4, business analysis. Number 5, product development. Number 6, marketing strategy development. Number 7, testing. And the last one is the commercialization. So these are the 8 steps of developing a new product planning. We are going to start with the very first one, that is the customer needs analysis. Analyzing the needs of customers can be an effective starting point for incremental innovation. So our point is that customer need analysis is to be conducted only for the incremental innovation, not for the transformational innovation, because we have already made the point very much clear to you. The customers can only play a role in incremental innovation. Their role is very limited in case of transformational innovation. Here the key thing is to identify the customer value requirements, what the customers really want from us, and such customer value requirements can be identified by studying the customer expectations and the actual product performance. The gap will be known as customer satisfaction gap, and such customer satisfaction gap can be fulfilled by number 1, offering new products, by ensuring number 2, improvements, number 3, by new and improved process. One thing that must be kept in mind in this very first step is that it is not a compulsory step. This step is required only for the incremental innovation. For transformational innovation, customer need analysis will not be required because customers have a very limited role to play in transformation. Then we have idea generation. Idea generation ranges from incremental improvements of existing products to transformational products that you have already known. But the main focal point of this topic is that from how many sources such new ideas can be generated. So there are different sources of new ideas. Number 1, R&D laboratories. Number 2, employees. Number 3, customers. Number 4, competitors. Number 5, outside inventors. Number 6, acquisition. Number 7, value chain members. So usually R&D laboratories are used for transformational innovations, and examples can include the pharmaceutical companies. Most of the pharmaceutical companies rely on their R&D laboratories to come up with the new ideas. Then the second source, employees. Organizations that we have already talked about, like Google, 3M, these innovative organizations heavily rely upon their employees to come up with new ideas. If you can recall 3M, if you can recall Google that you have already talked about in the last class, they heavily rely on their employees to come up with the new ideas. Then customers. Mostly the FMCG companies are in the habit of using customers as a source of generating new ideas, and this is the mostly used sources of generating new ideas. If we are talking about incremental innovation, our customers can play a significant role. Then competitors. Competitors are supposed to be the prime source of generating new ideas in the industry of home appliances, electronic appliances, or something like that. And some critics are in the habit of suggesting that Samsung is basically generating its ideas from its competitors, what the competitors are doing. And the next source is the outside inventors, like Procter & Gamble They usually collaborate with other university labs all over the USA to come up with new idea that can be marketed by Procter & Gamble. Acquisition. If the idea is generated by some other entrepreneurs outside the company, then the company can purchase that innovative ideas to market themselves. Example may be cited in terms of the purchasing of YouTube by Google. And some organization can also generate the new ideas from their value chain members, and particularly the FMCG, the fast moving consumer goods companies, also rely upon their distributors or their distribution partners to come up with some new ideas. Increasingly, companies are developing the open market innovation. Open market innovation is a kind of innovation that is actually shared among the organizations. There are many variations like licensing. When Google came up with Android, they've licensed it to Samsung. So that's the licensing thing. So joint venture, that can be also joint ventures and strategic alliances. Two or more companies are putting up their resources to come up with an innovation that will be shared among the organization, like digital photography. We have already talked about in the classrooms. If you can recall, two companies were collaborating on that kind of innovation. So open market innovation have three variations: licensing, joint ventures, and strategic alliances. Then we will move on to the next step, that is screening. In screening, we are basically concerned with selecting the idea that will be taken to the next step. A new product idea receives an initial screening to determine its strategic fit in the company or business unit. Two questions need to be answered here. Number one, is the idea compatible with the organization's mission and objective? Here, suppose we have a new idea. The first question that should be asked is the new idea for the new product is consistent with the company's mission? Suppose Microsoft has a new idea that can be applied in the pharmaceutical industry for improving the health condition of the world. But is it consistent with the Microsoft mission and objective? No. In that case, Microsoft will drop the idea in this very stage. The next question that should be asked is the product initiative commercially feasible? Maybe the product idea is good, maybe the product has distinctive features that can be demanded by the customers, but will the company be able to market it profitably? Will the company be able to sell the product at a profit? If the answer is yes, then the idea will be taken to the next stage. If the answer to the question is no, in that case the idea will be dropped here. So let me repeat again. In the screening section, we are basically deciding which ideas to take forward. I means we are selecting one or two ideas from a bunch of ideas. How many questions should be asked here? Two questions. What is the first question? Is the idea compatible with the organization mission and objectives? If the answer is no, the idea should not be taken to the next stage. If the answer is yes, the idea should be taken to the next stage. The second question, is the product initiative commercially feasible? That means, can the company market the ideas at a profit? If the answer to the question is yes, in that case, the idea should be taken to the next stage. So if the answer to both the questions are yes, in that case, we'll go to the next of evaluation. That means the concept evaluation. Here, we'll make a distinction between new product idea and a new product concept. If a new product idea passed the test of two questions that we have already covered in the last topic, that new product idea will be converted into a new product concept. So a new product concept is a qualified new product idea that have already passed the two questions that we have used in the last section. Then we'll go for the concept test. Concept test is a useful way to evaluate a product idea very early in the development process. One distinguishing aspect is that here we'll basically explain the product conceptually to the customers. Conceptually. Here I want to focus on the term conceptually. The actual product will not be demonstrated to the customer because the product has not been made yet. we are just explaining if that kind of a product can be offered to you, will you buy the product? We are basically describing the features of the product, the benefits of the product to the target market conceptually without showing the product to the target market. That's why we call it the concept test. That means it's not a product test because the product is absent here. We are just explaining the product conceptually to the target market, and they will decide if they're happy or unhappy or neutral with the very idea. So the focal point is that concept test is a useful way to evaluate a product idea very early in the development process. If the answer to the concept test is very favorable, or the customers are coming up with a very positive response to such proposed new product concept, we'll move on to the next. And the next stage is business analysis. In business analysis, we are mainly concerned with determining the profitability of the new product idea. What we'll do here? Number one, we'll develop a preliminary marketing plan. That means we'll try to develop the marketing mix for the proposed new product. It will include the product, price, place, and promotion. And then we'll make a revenue forecast. How much revenues can be expected over the years from marketing that product. Then we'll estimate the cost. How much cost might be incurred in marketing that product. So if we deduct the cost from the revenue, we'll come up with the last thing, that is the profit projection. So let me repeat. In business analysis, what we are mainly concerned with? We are mainly concerned with the profitability of the new product concept. What we'll do here? Number one, we'll develop a preliminary marketing plan. We'll clarify what sorts of marketing mix will be used by us. That will include the product, price, place, and promotion. And we'll have a revenue forecast. How much revenues can be generated from that? Then we have the cost estimation. Then we have the profit projection. Number one, marketing plan, then revenue forecast, then cost estimation, then profit projection. Profit projection is nothing but the difference between revenue minus the cost. So we are developing the preliminary marketing plan, then identify that how much revenues can be generated from that plan. Third one, how much cost will be incurred for implementing the plan. And if we deduct the third item, that means the cost, from the second item, that means the revenue, will come up with the fourth item, that means the profit projection. If the new product concept is found to be profitable enough in this very stage of business analysis, then we'll move on to the next step. The next step is concerned with product and process development. We have already made the point very much clear to you. If the result of the concept test is optimistic, that means if the result of the previous steps are positive, the product development should focus on the following issues. Number one, product specifications. Number two, industrial design. Number three, prototype. Number four, use test. Number five, process development. In product specification, the company will mainly identify the characteristics. That means identify what the product will do to the customers or for the customers. The product specifications are mainly concerned with identifying what the product can do for the customers, identifying the characteristics of the product. That's what product specification is all about. Then we'll go for the industrial design. Now we know the characteristics of the product. We will communicate with industrial designer. One of the premier industrial designer of the world is IDEO. It's one of the biggest organization in the world. It is basically a professional industrial design firm. What they do? We have already identified the characteristics of the product. Then we'll go with these characteristics of the product to industrial design firm like IDEO. We'll communicate the product characteristics, and IDEO will develop a product for us, not for the purpose of marketing. They will just show if the product, the physical product, can actually perform the characteristics that we have already identified. That product produced by the industrial design firm like IDEO will be known as prototype. So what is a prototype? A prototype is a product made by the industrial design to see if the product can have the identified characteristics. The prototype will be used in the use test. What is the use test? If you can recall, in concept test, we did not show the physical product to the customers. We have only explained the product conceptually to the target market by explaining its characteristics or something like that. But we did not show any kind of physical product to them. But in use test, we will actually show the physical product to the target market. How? Because we have already have prototype, and prototype was developed by whom? Industrial design firm. On the basis of what industrial design firm has developed the prototype? On the basis of product specification. So let me repeat again. First of all, we'll identify the product characteristics. That means the product specification. Then we'll go to whom? We'll go to the industrial design firm. What they will do? They will develop a prototype for us. What the prototype will be used for? For use test. In use test, we are basically showing the physical product to the customers, and then they will be asked to evaluate the product again. So what's the difference between the concept test and the use test? In concept test, the product will be explained only conceptually to the target market. But in use test, we're actually showing the product to the target market so that they can evaluate the product characteristics more specifically with more conviction. If the result to that use test is positive, we'll go for the process development. Process development is nothing but the establishment of the process that will transform the idea into a physical product, the input into output. If the organizations have done all things, product specification, industrial design, prototype, and a positive response to the use test, the organization will definitely go for the process development, in which they will establish the infrastructure facility that can actually produce the product. That is the process development is really all about. Then we have idea generation. Idea generation ranges from incremental improvements of existing products to transformational products that you have already done. But the main focal point of this topic is that from how many sources such new ideas can be generated. So there are different sources of new ideas. Number 1, R&D laboratories. Number 2, employees. Number 3, customers. Number 4, competitors. Number 5, outside inventors. Number 6, acquisition. Number 7, value chain members. So usually R&D laboratories are used for transformational innovations, and examples can include the pharmaceutical companies. Most of the pharmaceutical companies rely on their R&D laboratories to come up with the new ideas. Then the second source, employees. Organizations that we have already talked about, like Google, 3M, these innovative organizations heavily rely upon their employees to come up with new ideas. If you can recall 3M, if you can recall Google that you have already talked about in the last class, they heavily rely on their employees to come up with the new ideas. Then customers. Mostly the FMCG companies are in the habit of using customers as a source of generating new ideas, and this is the mostly used sources of generating new ideas. If we are talking about incremental innovation, or customers can play a significant role. Then competitors. Competitors are supposed to be the prime source of generating new ideas. Market testing. In market testing, several methods can be used, and it can only be considered after the product is fully developed, assuming the product is suitable for the market testing. That means before market testing, we have already the first batch of product produced, but those products will be used for the purpose of testing the customers' responses to that product. Different types of tests can be conducted here. Usually the options are: number 1, simulated test; number 2, scanner based test; number 3, traditional test; and number 4, web-enabled test. In simulated test, the basic idea is that a simulated market environment will be created. Suppose in a particular room of a company, we'll establish a store, which is not a real store really, but we are just establishing the store for the purpose of using the simulated test. We will establish a simulated store in our office or in the marketing research firm. In that case, the customers will be asked to visit the simulated store and they will be asked to those invited customers will be asked to evaluate the products in the store environment. But one thing that must be kept in mind, that the store environment is not the real store, it's the simulated store. It's not the real store, rather the organization has established that store for the purpose of studying the customer's reaction to our products. And our products will be kept with other competing products so that the customer's competitive reaction towards our product vis-a-vis the products of other brands and other competitors can be studied more minorly. We have the scanner based test. It is the another form of test in which some scanner can be used, and the details will be covered in some another chapters. We're not going in details. And the traditional test is basically concerned with developing a mini marketing effort in some specific region. Suppose we are conducting a full marketing effort in Tangai and Mymensingh. On the basis of the result that we will get from that traditional test, we'll decide if we will go for the national level marketing. And web-enabled test is another version that the name suggests that the testing will be conducted online, and Procter & Gamble is in the habit of using more web-enabled test now, but again the details will be covered in another chapter. So in market testing, our basic point is that now we have the first batch of product ready for the purpose of being tested in the market. Usually 4 options are available there: simulated test, scanner based test, traditional test, and web-enabled test. One thing that should be kept in mind, we do not have to go into details of these kinds of tests because all those things will be covered in a later period of time in a new chapter, so we're not going to describe elaborately here. So market testing, the first thing is that we have already some product ready for the purpose of being tested in the market, and usually we have 4 options there: simulated test, scanner based test, traditional test, web-enabled test. You should just keep these 4 types of test in your mind. You do not have to explain because all this explanation will be done in some other chapters, not now. In the last phase, that is the commercialization. Introducing the new products into the market requires, number 1, finalizing the marketing plan. You can recall we have already developed the marketing plan. How? Because when we are going for the business analysis, the first thing that we have done is the marketing plan. That was actually clarifying the marketing mix, the product, price, place, and the promotion. So that was done. If it is an incremental innovation, then we'll go for the marketing strategy development, in which we have gone for the reclarification of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Now we have already have the marketing mix, we already have the STP. Now in this final stage, we'll finalize that are we okay with the previously identified marketing mix and the STP. If it is okay, now we are finalizing just the marketing plan. Then number 2, coordinating market entry activities across business function. So if you are to offer the product commercially in the full scale all over the country, it's not that only the marketing department is only department that will be responsible for that. We need logistics, we need our distribution department to work with, then we have the finance department, and all other departments will have a role to play. So we have to coordinate the market entry activities across the business functions, and those business functions may include along with marketing, finance, logistics, operations, human resource management, and all these steps. And then we'll go for implementing the marketing strategy that we've already developed. After implementing the marketing strategy, the only one thing remains to be done, and that is monitoring and controlling the product launch. So, in the commercialization stage, we are basically required to ensure four things. Number one, finalizing the marketing plan. We are just finalizing the marketing plan here. We have already identified the marketing mix. We have already pre-clarified the STP for transformational innovation. Then coordinating marketing activities across business function. That means cross-functional preparation. Cross-functional preparation for the market entry, and the marketing department will coordinate with all other departmental functions. And the third one, after ensuring such coordination across the various business functions, we'll go for implementing the marketing strategy. And after implementing the marketing strategy, we'll have to go for monitoring and controlling the product launch, so that we'll be able to understand if we are meeting the objectives that we have set before. So these are the four functions of the commercialization stage. So these are the things that we're expected to cover in this lecture, and hopefully you have understood all the things that you have covered in this very chapter. But one or two things that should be kept in mind: in market testing, you have to only identify the types of test can be conducted. You do not have to explain the details of that test technique that will be covered in a different chapter. So in this very topic, you will just clarify that what things should be done. And in terms of marketing strategy development, one thing that should be kept in mind, the first question that should be asked is, what is the idea is the new product idea is a transformational innovation or a incremental innovation. We need the reclarification of STP only for the case of what? Only for the case of our transformational innovation, not for the other things. And in the very first step, we talked about the customer need analysis. That must be kept in mind is what? That customer need analysis is required only for, let me emphasize again, it is required only for the incremental innovation, not in transformational innovation. So these are some key points that must be kept in mind, and I hope I have already made the topics very much clear to you. If you have any questions, those questions can be asked when we will meet in the classroom in the regular class. Until then, stay safe, stay home. Until then, goodbye for now.